So let's just jump right in. We've all been there, right? You've got this incredibly powerful AI, you ask it for something you think is pretty simple, and what you get back is, well, it's generic, it's unhelpful, it's just not what you wanted. It really feels like there's this massive disconnect between what these models can do and what we can actually get them to do.
And this slide, this right here, gets to the absolute heart of the problem. On the left, that's us, a totally normal human request, create a Fibonacci function. But on the right, whoa. That's what the AI actually needs to give you a perfect result. It's this super detailed, templated set of instructions that covers everything from error handling to documentation. So the real question is, how do we bridge that gap automatically?
Okay, here's a great way to think about it. Imagine you walk into a fancy restaurant. You don't hand the head chef a detailed recipe, right? No, you just say, "I'd like some pasta." The system we're going to explore today is like that entire professional kitchen staff. It takes your simple order and then writes the perfect, detailed recipe for the chef, the AI, to execute flawlessly.
And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to follow our simple little Fibonacci function request as it travels through this automated system step by step to see how it's transformed from just a vague idea into a perfect set of instructions.
This whole journey really breaks down into 4 key stages. First, the system has to figure out what you really mean. Then it has to protect any of the important details you've already given it. After that, it applies the perfect template to build out the request. And maybe the coolest part of all, the system is always learning how to do its job even better.
All right, so let's get into it. First stop on the journey, understanding your true intent. Our prompt has just walked in the door, and the system's first job isn't just to read the words, but to figure out the actual goal behind them.
So what it does is it starts by giving the prompt what's called a sophistication score. Our little prompt. It gets a pretty low score, which is the system's way of saying, okay, this person is probably going to need some handholding. Then it zeroes in on the context. It sees keywords like function and immediately tags our goal as code generation. Simple as that.
Okay, so the system knows what we want to do. The next job is super important. It needs to act like a guardian, making absolutely sure that any of the specific critical details we've already provided don't get lost in the shuffle.
Now to see how this works, let's check out a slightly different example. A tool called the Universal Content Analyzer is smart enough to separate the human part of the instruction from the technical bits, so that hour 16:09, that's a very specific command. The system sees it, pulls it aside, and basically puts a protective shield around it to keep it safe, while the rest of the prompt gets its big upgrade.
So our intent is understood, our details are safe. Now we get to the real heart of this thing, the AI-aware rules engine. This is where the magic really happens. This is the transformation.
But how does it know which recipe to use? Well, the engine scans our prompt looking for very specific keywords and patterns. You can think of them like triggers that tell the system exactly which expert template to grab from its library.
For instance, here's a really simple pattern. It's just designed to spot basic questions that start with words like what, how, or why.
And once a pattern like that gets a match, the system doesn't just tweak a word or two. No, it applies a complete, pre-written, expert-level template to the whole thing. And boom, this is what you get. Our simple little question gets transformed into this detailed directive. It's now asking the AI for a comprehensive explanation with key concepts, practical examples. I mean, it's a night and day difference, right?
And here's the crucial part. This whole process is exactly what happens to our Fibonacci example. The keywords create and function trigger a very specific technical rule. And that rule instantly expands our vague 3-word prompt into that perfect, machine-ready set of instructions we saw at the very beginning, the one that asks for best practices, error handling, the whole shebang.
But look, just having a library of awesome templates isn't quite enough. The real secret sauce, the most powerful part of this whole system, is that it's not static. It is constantly learning and fine-tuning itself to get better. And you have to hear this. When this system was first turned on, its success rate was a big fat 0. Seriously, 0%. It turns out its internal confidence settings were just calibrated way too cautiously. It was basically too scared to make a mistake, which meant it never actually helped at all.
So to fix this, the system uses something called a Bayesian optimizer. Now you can just think of it as a little automated scientist in a lab coat. It runs thousands and thousands of tests on itself, measures its own performance, and then intelligently tweaks all of its internal settings to find that absolute perfect balance.
And the results of this self-tuning? Well, they're pretty staggering.
The system's effectiveness skyrockets from almost nothing to being incredibly effective. It literally teaches itself how to be a better co-pilot.
So, we followed our prompt all the way from this simple little idea to a fully optimized instruction. And that journey, it represents a really huge shift in how we should be thinking about working with AI.
So let's just quickly trace that path one last time. We started with just a simple idea, the system figured out what we really wanted, it protected our important details, and then it applied an expert-level template to expand it into the perfect set of instructions. All of it guided by a self-tuning process to make sure it worked.
And that brings us to the really big idea here. This kind of technology moves us beyond just asking the AI questions and, hoping for the best. It's about taking control. We're not just prompting anymore. We are actively directing the AI to do exactly what we need it to do.
And this is so much bigger than just getting better answers from a chatbot. Systems like this are pushing AI to go beyond just understanding the literal words we type. They are finally starting to understand our intent, what we actually mean. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about. Once that translation from our vague ideas to a perfect instruction becomes completely seamless, once AI can always understand what we mean, what new, bigger, more incredible things are we going to ask it to do next?